I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. I always considered myself a good husband. My wife, Sarah, and I had been married for 8 years. We met in college, and I always thought we had something special. But recently, things began to feel different. There were small changes, subtle shifts in her behavior that I dismissed at first. Sarah was always a bit of a free spirit. She was the life of the party, always charming and witty. I loved that about her, but over the years there was a growing sense of distance. I'd catch her staring at her phone more than usual, laugh at jokes that weren't that funny, and there were nights when she'd come home later than expected. Every excuse she had seemed flimsy, yet I didn't want to believe what my gut was screaming at me. One evening, after I had finished my shift at the office, I came home to find her in the living room. She was on the couch, and for a moment I felt a glimmer of normalcy, but it quickly faded. She was scrolling through her phone, her face illuminated by the screen's glow. I tried to engage her, asked about her day, but she barely looked up. Just a quick reply about how busy it was at work. I felt a chill, an unsettling feeling creeping up my spine. It all came to a head one night when I got a text from an unknown number. The message was simple but enough to send my heart racing. "You should ask Sarah about her late nights." It was like a punch to the gut. I didn't know who sent it, but the seed of doubt had been planted. I spent the night tossing and turning, replaying every late night and every vague excuse in my mind. Could she really be cheating on me? The next day, I decided to do some digging. Sarah had a habit of leaving her phone unattended, thinking she was invincible. I went through her messages and found a thread that made my heart drop. There were flirty exchanges with someone named Mike. I felt the world tilt beneath me as I read through their banter, filled with innuendos and inside jokes that were clearly not meant for my eyes. Each message was a dagger to my heart, and I felt anger bubbling up within me. When Sarah came home that evening, I was ready for a confrontation. I didn't tiptoe around it, I laid it all out. "Who's Mike?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. She froze, her eyes wide with shock, but I could see the gears turning in her mind. "Mike? Oh, he's just a coworker," she stammered, but I wasn't buying it anymore. "Just a coworker who you joke with about taking a weekend trip together," I shot back. Her expression morphed from shock to defiance. "You're reading too much into this, it's innocent." But I wasn't having it. This was the moment I had been dreading, yet somehow it felt liberating to confront her. The lies she had fed me over the years came flooding back, and all I could feel was betrayal. I challenged her on her late nights and strange behavior, and she spun a web of excuses. "I've been stressed, working long hours. You know how it is," she said, but I could see through her facade. Her eyes darted around the room as if she was searching for an escape. The gaslighting was palpable. I could feel the years of doubt seep back into my mind. I felt a mix of anger and disbelief. How could she treat me like this, after all we had been through? My heart raced as I realized the depths of her betrayal, but I also felt this strange resolve growing inside me. I couldn't let this slide. I needed to plan my next move carefully. This was no longer just about my feelings, it was about reclaiming my dignity. I spent the next few days in a haze of emotions. I felt like a ship without a sail, tossed around by waves of pain, anger, and confusion. But one thing was clear. I wasn't going to allow her lies to dictate my life any longer. What I was going to do next would require strategy. I needed to gather evidence to prove my suspicions. I lit a slow-burning fuse behind every lie she had told, ready to watch it all come crashing down around her. I couldn't wait to see the look on her face when the truth came out. As I plotted my revenge, I found myself reflecting on the years we'd spent together. It was bittersweet. I wanted to hold onto the good memories, but the betrayal was too strong. This wasn't just about cheating anymore. It was about taking back my life. The days that followed were a blur of strategic planning and emotional turmoil. I felt like a detective in my own life, piecing together a puzzle that had been hidden in plain sight. Every time Sarah came home, I watched her closely, noting the little things, the way she laughed too loudly at her phone, the lingering fragrance of someone else's cologne on her clothes, the excuses that had once seemed trivial but now felt monumental. I decided to dig deeper. I knew that if I wanted answers, I needed evidence that couldn't be dismissed as paranoia. So I began to take notes, tracking her movements, her late nights, and the sudden changes in her routine. I even created a spreadsheet that mapped out her schedule. It became my obsession. It felt like I was building a case against a criminal, and in my mind, Sarah was guilty. One Saturday, while she was out running errands, I decided to take a chance. I went through her makeup bag, something I'd never thought to do before. I rifled through her cosmetics, hoping to find something, perhaps a receipt or a little trinket that would reveal more than she had let on. Instead, I found a small, crumpled piece of paper. It was a receipt for a hotel in town, dated just a week prior. My heart raced. A hotel? For what? My mind immediately flashed back to those late nights she claimed were filled with work obligations. I felt my stomach knot as I clutched the receipt tightly in my hand. I was tempted to call her right then and there, to confront her about it, but I decided to hold off. I wanted to be smarter about this. After she returned home, I played it cool. I acted as though nothing was wrong. We shared a dinner of takeout, the usual small talk floating between us like a thin veil over the reality of our situation. Yet my mind was racing with thoughts of that receipt, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was playing a dangerous game. That night, as I lay in bed beside her, I felt a mixture of anger and sadness. I couldn't stop thinking about the times she had gaslit me, convincing me that I was the one imagining things. I felt a strange sense of empowerment, too. I had the upper hand now, and I was going to expose her lies. The following week, I decided to take a day off work. I wanted to execute my plan without distraction. I planned to stake out the hotel indicated on the receipt. I wanted to see for myself if she was truly cheating. The thought of witnessing her with another man made my blood boil, but I needed proof of her betrayal. On the day of my surveillance, I arrived at the hotel around lunchtime. I parked across the street and waited, my heart racing with anticipation and dread. I watched the entrance, every minute feeling like an hour. I thought of all the moments we had shared, the love we had built, and how easily it could all come crashing down. Around 2 p.m. I saw her, a vision in a flowing sundress, looking radiant but so painfully deceiving. She walked into the hotel with another man, a tall guy with dark hair and an easy smile. The sight of them together sent a wave of fury through me, but I forced myself to stay put. I took out my phone and snapped a picture of them as they entered. It was like my heart was being ripped from my chest. I spent the next hour watching them, fighting the urge to storm in there and confront them. Instead, I played the patient game. I recorded every detail, every laugh shared, every touch that lingered just a second too long. The anger simmered below the surface, but I had to keep my cool. I needed to be strategic. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life and dignity. Eventually, they emerged from the hotel, and I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I could see the sun shining brightly behind them, illuminating their carefree laughter. They walked towards a car, and at that moment I snapped a few more pictures. I had the proof I needed, and it felt like both a relief and a fresh wave of pain. When I got home, I didn't immediately show Sarah the photos. Instead, I let her enjoy her evening just as I had for months. I wanted to savor the moment of her eventual reckoning. I planned our confrontation for the following night. I needed to be prepared, armed with evidence and ready to dismantle her web of lies. As I lay in bed that night, my thoughts raced. I couldn't believe I was in this position. I had trusted her completely. The anger felt like a fire in my chest, but beneath that there was also a profound sadness. I thought of the life we had built, the dreams we had shared, and how easily they could be shattered. I knew this wasn't going to be easy, but it was necessary. I was ready to face the truth, no matter how painful it was. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, I was going to confront her and reclaim my life. I wouldn't let her lies define me any longer. The sun set slowly the next evening, casting a golden hue over our home that felt painfully ironic. I paced back and forth in the living room, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I had spent the day preparing for this moment, gathering my thoughts, reviewing the evidence, and envisioning the confrontation in my mind. I wanted to be calm, collected, but I knew that the emotions We're going to surge whether I liked it or not. Sarah walked in just after 6, her usual cheerful demeanor filling the room. "Hey babe, I picked up some dinner," she called out, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I watched as she set down the bags, her back to me. I felt a mix of anger and sadness. I was about to shatter her world, but it was completely justified. I had to remind myself of that. "Can we talk?" I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. She turned to face me, her expression shifting from joy to confusion. "Sure, what's up?" I gestured for her to sit down at the kitchen table, my heart pounding in my chest. I took a deep breath, knowing this was the moment that would change everything. "I know about Mike," I said, watching her closely for any sign of denial. Her face paled, and for a brief moment I felt a glimmer of triumph. "What do you mean?" she stammered, trying to regain her composure. I leaned in, my eyes locked onto hers. "I mean, I know he's not just a coworker. I saw you with him, at the hotel. I have pictures." I pulled out my phone and slid the images across the table, watching as her eyes widened in shock. She picked it up, glancing at the screen, disbelief etched across her face. This isn't what you think," she exclaimed, but the panic in her voice betrayed her. "Then what is it? You went into a hotel room with him, Sarah. That doesn't exactly scream innocent coworker to me," I retorted, my voice rising slightly. I could feel the anger bubble up again, but I fought to keep it in check. I didn't want to scream, I wanted clarity. She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. Okay, just let me explain." Her tone shifted, a mix of desperation and anger. "Yes, I was with him, but it wasn't like that. We were just talking. It was a mistake." "A mistake? How many times have you seen him?" I shot back, my heart racing. The lies were piling up, and I could feel the weight of betrayal closing in around me. "Just a few times. It was stupid. I didn't want hurt you. It just happened," she said, her voice rising in pitch. "You don't understand the pressure I've been under at work. I needed someone to talk to. Someone to talk to, or someone to sleep with." I pressed, feeling the weight of every moment of doubt and confusion pressing down on me. "You've built this entire facade, Sarah. You gaslit me for years, convincing me that I was the crazy one for questioning your late nights. All the times you brushed me off, the excuses. It all makes sense now." She looked at me, and for a fleeting moment I thought I saw remorse in her eyes, but then it vanished, replaced by anger. "You're twisting this around. I didn't mean to hurt you," she shouted, her voice rising. "You don't know what it feels like to be under constant pressure and then feel completely alone." "Alone? You had me. You chose to betray me." I replied, the hurt pouring out of me in waves. The reality of it all felt surreal. This was the woman I had loved, the woman I had stood by through everything, and here she was, unraveling before me. For the next few minutes we went back and forth, her pleading for my understanding while I demanded accountability. It was as if we were trapped in a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness, a cacophony of pain that felt like it could swallow us whole. I wanted to believe her, wanted to see the good in her, but the betrayal was too deep. Finally, I decided to cut through the chaos. "Sarah, I can't keep doing this. I can't live in a world where I don't know if I can trust you. I don't want to be married to someone who lies to my face." Her expression shifted from anger to desperation. "Please don't say that. We can fix this. I love you. I messed up, but we can work through it." But I had reached my breaking point. "Love? You don't throw away love like this, Sarah. You don't cheat on someone you claim to love." Tears streamed down her face, and for the first time I felt a pang of sorrow for her. I didn't want to hurt her. I wanted the life we had back, but it was clear that was no longer possible. I had uncovered the truth, and now I had to decide how to move forward. "I need time to think," I said, my voice softer now. "I can't just pretend everything is okay. I need space." She nodded, and I could see the realization settling in. This was not just a fight. This was a fracture in our marriage that might never heal. I stood up and walked toward the bedroom, my heart heavy with the uncertain future that lay ahead. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of relief and heartbreak. The truth was out, but at what cost? I had exposed her lies, but the emotional wreckage was still there, and I didn't know how to navigate it. I felt lost and betrayed, but I also felt a sense of empowerment. I had taken a stand for myself, and whatever happened next, I was determined to reclaim my life. The days that followed were a tumultuous whirlwind of emotions. I moved through our home like a ghost, floating from room to room, haunted by memories of the life I thought I had. Sarah was still there, but it felt like we were living in different worlds. The laughter and warmth that once filled our space had been replaced by a heavy silence, thick with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. I took a few days off work, needing the time to process everything. It was painful to see her trying to reach out. Her attempts at conversation often met with my cold silence. I felt like I was in a fog, grappling with the betrayal while also battling my own confusion. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to pretend this never happened, but another part screamed for justice, for accountability. One night, as I sat on the couch scrolling mindlessly through my phone, I received a message from an unknown number. My heart raced as I opened it, half expecting it to be another taunt or reminder of her betrayal. But what I found was a message from Mike, the man Sarah had cheated with. The text read, "I know you're hurt, but Sarah and I are just friends. I never meant to come between you two. Please don't take this out on her." I felt a surge of anger wash over me, and I fought the urge to respond immediately. Who did he think he was? Did he seriously think he could smooth over this mess with a half-hearted apology? The audacity was infuriating. I sat there for a moment, contemplating my response, but I knew that engaging with him would only complicate things further. I needed clarity, not more chaos. Instead, I approached the situation with what I felt was a better tactic. I confronted Sarah again. My heart raced at the thought of the impending conversation, but I knew I had to ask her about Mike. If he was reaching out to me, then it was time to see what else was lurking beneath the surface. That evening, I found Sarah in the kitchen preparing dinner. She hummed softly to herself, a stark contrast to the tension that hung in the air. I could feel the weight of the conversation pressing down on me, but I steeled myself. "We need to talk," I said, my tone firm but calm. She looked up, her expression shifting from surprise to apprehension. "About what?" "About Mike. He texted me," I replied, watching the color drain from her face. "He claims you two are just friends. Is that true?" She bit her lip, and in that moment I could see the internal struggle written all over her face. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she began, her voice shaky. "It's complicated. Complicated? You walked into a hotel room with him, Sarah. How is that complicated?" I shot back, feeling the anger rising again. "You need to be honest with me, no more lies." She hesitated, and for a moment I thought she was going to break down again. Okay, he was a mistake. It started as just talking, but it turned into something else, and I didn't know how to stop it. "How long has this been going on?" I pressed, my heart racing as I braced for her answer. "Only a couple of months," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I swear I wanted to end it. I was planning to tell you everything. I just didn't know how." I felt a mix of anger and disbelief wash over me. "You were planning to tell me? When? After you got caught?" I could feel the hurt bubbling inside me, and I couldn't help but think of all the moments she had deceived me. "Do you even realize how much this has shattered our trust?" "I know it's bad. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "I was just so overwhelmed with everything, and I thought I could manage it all. I didn't want to burden you with my problems." "Burden me? You think your infidelity is a burden I could have handled. I would have helped you, but instead, you chose to betray me." I shouted, the pain spilling over. "You made your choice." The room fell silent, and I could see the realization washing over her. The gravity of her actions hit hard, not just for me but for her as well. I felt a surge of sympathy, but it was quickly overshadowed by the hurt. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I want honesty. I need you to tell me everything. No more half-truths or excuses." "I deserve that," I replied, my voice softer now. She wiped at her tears and nodded, her shoulders trembling as she took a deep breath. "Okay, I will tell you everything. I never wanted to hurt you, and I know it sounds like an excuse, but I felt so alone. I thought I could fix things on my own, and I was wrong." As she began to recount her version of events, I listened carefully, trying to sift through her words for the truth. It was a painful retelling, filled with moments of vulnerability and fear. He described how she felt neglected at work, how she turned to Mike for comfort, and how that comfort spiraled out of control. I could see the genuine remorse in her eyes, but it didn't erase the betrayal. I thought I could keep it a secret, that I could manage my feelings without involving you, she said, her voice cracking. But it got out of hand, and now I don't know how to fix this. Maybe you can't fix it, I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. Maybe this is too big to come back from. The reality of our situation weighed heavily on both of us. I didn't want to throw away our marriage, but I also couldn't ignore the truth of what had happened. I was torn between the love I still felt for her and the visceral pain of her betrayal. As the conversation continued, I felt like I was walking on a tightrope, balancing my emotions and the harsh reality of our situation. I needed to think about what I wanted, about what was best for me moving forward. Trust had been broken, and rebuilding it would take time, if it could even be rebuilt at all. That night, after a long and exhausting conversation, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. My mind raced with thoughts of the future and the choices I had to make. I had been wronged, and as much as I wanted to forgive her, a part of me was terrified of repeating the same mistakes. I had to reclaim my life, but the path forward remained unclear. In the silence of the night, I realized that while I had exposed her lies, I also needed to uncover the truth within myself. What did I truly want? What was I willing to accept? The answers were elusive, but I knew one thing for sure: I had to take control of my future, whatever that might look like. The following days felt like an emotional limbo. Sarah and I were living in a fragile coexistence, navigating a minefield of unresolved feelings and confusion. I was still grappling with the enormity of her betrayal, and while she expressed remorse and a desire to make things right, I was hesitant to jump back into the same turbulent waters. I spent my days at work, burying myself in tasks to avoid facing the reality of our situation. Each time I returned home, I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. The laughter we once shared felt like a distant memory, replaced by awkward silences and strained conversations. Sarah tried to reach out to me, often initiating heart-to-heart talks, but I wasn't ready. I needed to think, to process what had happened, and to decide if reconciliation was possible. One evening, as I sat on the couch lost in thought, I received another message from Mike. This time it was more direct. "I heard you and Sarah talked. I want to apologize for the pain I've caused. I never wanted to come between you two." My initial instinct was to ignore him, but I found myself compelled to respond. "You might not have meant to, but you did. You tore my world apart." He replied, "I know. I regret it, and I think Sarah deserves a second chance. She's a good person who made a mistake." That hit me hard. I didn't want to think of Sarah as merely a good person who slipped up, but it was hard to ignore the humanity in that statement. We all falter at times, yet the pain of her infidelity was still fresh, bleeding into my every thought. I had been considering what my next step should be. Was I doing her a disservice by holding on to the anger? Could I forgive her? It was an internal battle that felt exhausting. I wanted to be strong, but I also wanted to be fair, not just to her but to myself. I needed to consider my own happiness and well-being. That weekend, I made the decision to meet with Sarah for a serious conversation. I needed clarity, and I needed to understand what we both wanted moving forward. As we sat across from each other at the dining table, I felt the tension rising. It was a moment of reckoning, and I could sense the weight of our past experiences pressing down on us. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," I began, my voice steady but full of emotion. "I don't want to rush into anything, but I need to know if we can truly work through this." She looked at me, her eyes filled with hope and concern. "I want to fix this, I really do. I know I hurt you, and I can't express how sorry I am. But I've also reflected on my own mistakes. I need to take responsibility for my actions. I want to prove to you that I can be the partner you deserve." I took a deep breath. "What does that look like for you?" "I think we need to go to couples therapy. I can't expect us to just move past this without help. I need to learn how to communicate better and how to be a better partner to you," she replied, her sincerity shining through as she spoke. "I want us to heal together, but I know it won't be easy." I nodded, taking in her words. Therapy seemed like a step in the right direction, a way to explore the depths of our issues while having a neutral party to guide us. It was a small glimmer of hope amidst the turmoil. "I'm willing to try that," I said cautiously, but we need to set some clear boundaries. Trust has to be rebuilt." "Absolutely," she agreed, her voice steady. "I'll do whatever it takes to regain your trust. I'll be transparent about everything, and I'll cut off any communication with Mike." I felt a flicker of relief at her words. It was a hard step, but transparency would be crucial. "I appreciate that. I need to know that I can rely on you, that you won't go back to those old habits. It's going to take time, and I can't promise that I won't have doubts." "I understand," she said, her expression earnest. "I know this will take time, but I'm willing to work on it. I want to be better for you, for us." The conversation flowed from there, each of us expressing our fears, hopes, and expectations. I found myself surprised at how much I still cared. For her, despite everything, there was a flicker of the love we once shared, a bond that had not entirely broken under the weight of betrayal. After our discussion, we made plans to find a therapist together. It felt like a step toward healing, but I also recognized the road ahead was long and fraught with challenges. We were starting to peel back the layers of our relationship, and I was aware there would be painful truths along the way. As the days turned into weeks, we attended therapy sessions, slowly unpacking the baggage we had carried for years. It was uncomfortable but necessary. We learned to communicate better, to express our feelings without fear of judgment. I discovered that Sarah had her own insecurities and fears that led her to seek comfort outside our marriage. And while that didn't excuse her actions, it allowed me to see her as a flawed individual rather than just a villain in this story. Yet there were moments when doubt crept in. I would catch myself wondering if she was really committed to the process, or if she was merely saying what she thought I wanted to hear. I had to remind myself that healing takes time. Trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. I found myself relying on the tools we were learning in therapy, using them to navigate the uncertainty. The journey was anything but linear. There were days of progress, and there were days when I felt my heart sink back to the depths of betrayal. But through it all, I kept reminding myself of the reasons I had chosen to stay and fight for our marriage. It was painful, but there were moments of laughter, connection, and understanding that reminded me of the love we shared. I realized that while Sarah had cheated, she was also willing to confront her mistakes, something I had to respect. The question of whether we could truly move forward remained at the forefront of my mind, but as we continued to work on our relationship, I began to see a glimmer of hope for the future. It was a long, winding road, but I was determined to navigate it with intention. I was learning how to reclaim my life, not just from her betrayal but through our collective healing. Whatever the outcome, I knew that I was taking control of my happiness and redefining what love meant for me. Would we emerge stronger together? Only time would tell, but I was ready to face that uncertainty head-on. As the weeks turned into months, Sarah and I continued our journey through therapy, and I started to notice a shift, not just in her but in myself as well. The process was grueling. We faced uncomfortable truths, and each session peeled back layers of our relationship that had long been buried under the weight of neglect and betrayal. But amidst the pain, there were also moments of clarity and growth. Sarah was committed to making things right. She began taking deliberate steps to reconnect with me, from planning date nights to simply being more present in our conversations. I saw glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, and it was both heartwarming and confusing. Would I ever fully trust her again? The question loomed large in my mind. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching an old movie, I found myself chuckling at a scene that reminded us of our early days together. It was a simple moment, but it felt significant. I looked over at her, and for the first time in a long while, I felt my guard drop just a little. The warmth of familiarity wrapped around us like a comforting blanket, and I realized that I could still enjoy the moments we shared, even as we navigated our complicated reality. However, trust was still an uphill battle. I often battled flashbacks of betrayal, visions of her smiling with Mike, the late-night texts, the deceit that had shattered my heart. I would catch myself second-guessing her words, scrutinizing her actions. There were moments of doubt that crept in like unwelcome shadows, but I was learning to confront those feelings rather than let them consume me. One day, I decided to share my fears with her. As we sat together on the porch, the sun setting in a palette of warm oranges and pinks, I opened up about the moments when I felt my trust wavering. "Sometimes I still feel afraid that you'll hurt me again," I admitted, my voice tinged with vulnerability. Her eyes softened and she reached for my hand. "I understand. I'm scared too. I don't want to lose you and I know I've caused you so much pain. I will do everything I can to prove that I'm committed to us. You deserve that and I want to earn your trust back." In that moment I felt a flicker of hope. It was small, but it was there. I realized that healing wasn't just about Sarah making amends. It was about me reclaiming my own strength and being open to the possibility of love again, however challenging that might be. As the months rolled on, we made a pact to communicate openly and honestly, no more secrets. I also started to engage in activities that brought me joy outside of our relationship. I reconnected with friends, picked up hobbies I had neglected, and spent time focusing on my own emotional well-being. I was learning that while our relationship was important, my happiness didn't solely depend on it. Eventually, we celebrated our first anniversary since the affair. It was bittersweet, marked by both reflection and hope. We decided to go to a favorite restaurant and try to recreate some of the magic we had lost. I was nervous about how it would feel, but as we laughed over appetizers and reminisced about our journey, I felt a sense of gratitude wash over me. We were not the same people we had been a year ago, but perhaps we were becoming something better, a couple forged in the fires of pain, learning to navigate the complexities of love with newfound resilience. Over time, I began to see the gradual rebuilding of our trust. Sarah was transparent about her whereabouts and who she was with, and I appreciated the effort she put into being more emotionally available. Each time she opened up about her struggles at work or her feelings about our relationship, I felt a little more of my old self returning, the man who believed in love, in partnership. I learned that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting or condoning her actions. It meant choosing to move forward without the burden of resentment weighing me down. I embraced the notion that relationships are dynamic and evolve through challenges and triumphs. In the end, I realized that while it would take time for us to fully heal, we had the tools to do so together. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was willing to walk it with her, one step at a time. I had taken control of my narrative, and in doing so, I discovered a strength within me that I didn't know existed. As we sat together that evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a sense of peace settle in. I looked over at Sarah, who caught my eye and smiled. It was a genuine smile, one that spoke of understanding and shared hope. I knew we still had work to do, but for the first time in a long time, I believed we could face it together. So, here we were, two imperfect people trying to forge a new path. It wasn't about erasing the past. It was about learning from it and moving forward with intention. Whatever lay ahead, I was ready to embrace it, one day at a time.